eclipse, we thought better to just push it off a day, make sure the council was in possession of the budget as required yesterday, and they were, and then take some time today and explain it to the media, to the public. Before I get started, I want to recognize we have our Deputy Mayor, Sharon Owens, here, and you'll be hearing from Sharon in a little bit. We also have our City Budget Director, Tim Rudd, and I believe our Chief Administrative Officer back there, Frank Oliva, for any backup required on budget questions. So, go over the agenda real quick. We'll do a spring health update. We always provide a public health update to begin the briefings. Do a little update and debrief on the eclipse. Go over the latest weekly CompStat report on crime. We're going to highlight some good news on congressionally directed spending, some important information around the Affordable Connectivity Program. Those two items will be covered by Deputy Mayor Owens, and then we'll finish with the budget and open it up for questions. So on the health front, again, as I said, we always check in with our County Health Commissioner, Dr. Anderson, for the latest on public health news. As it usually is, good news, bad news. Good news is respiratory viruses are on the decline, so that's good. I don't know if we want to say bad news, but just important news to be cognizant of tick-borne illnesses, something that you may associate more with warmer weather, but it's actually this spring season where it's getting warmer, but it is also wetter, is one of the higher risk windows for tick-borne illnesses. So just want people to be on the radar for that as you're getting out into your yards, doing gardening, other things, maybe going out for hikes. Ticks are out there. They never left during the winter, especially this winter, and please be aware of the risk associated with that, of being outdoors. I will classify this as bad news. The next one, which is measles, are popping up. Measles cases are popping up across the country. Very disconcerting. The closest one to Syracuse was identified in Nassau County, and the reality is, the measles is a vaccine-preventable disease, and the reason we're seeing more of it is because less children are being vaccinated for it. So it is a concern. I want to remind everyone, especially parents, to make sure that you're getting your routine childhood vaccinations, and this can be prevented. But currently it is on the uptick and something we all need to be aware of. All right, shifting to eclipse. So hopefully everyone had a great eclipse day here in Syracuse. I know it's a day I won't soon forget. The weather wasn't ideal, but I think pretty much everyone at least got a glimpse of the eclipse. I was right outside the front of City Hall along with Deputy Mayor and some of our other colleagues, and I'm pretty sure it was like this everywhere else, but you knew when the clouds were parting because you heard the oohs and the ahs, whether it was from right in front of City Hall or up on the building tops where we saw many people as well. But it was a neat experience. It was special, and it was a great opportunity for the city in the path of totality to welcome visitors. I heard a lot of reports about downtown on Sunday night. It was hopping. I drove around a little bit and saw a lot more people than we typically would. So people were here. The hotel rooms were sold out. Again, probably would have liked to see a little bit better weather, but the reality is I think people got to see what they came for, and again, just wanted to recognize that and appreciate it. So now the big question is, what do we do with these glasses that everybody had to have for yesterday? We've got some information for you that we thought was worth sharing. These protective solar eclipse glasses can be reused. Of course, we're not going to have the opportunity here in Syracuse to reuse them for a very long time, but others across the world will. And so there's an organization called Astronomers Without Borders, and they have a program where they donate them to people in need in other parts of the world, as I mentioned. So for anyone that is holding on to glasses that you no longer need, we will take them and we will donate them in partnership with Astronomers Without Borders. So if you have those glasses, bring them here to City Hall. You can just drop them off at the front security desk. And you can also bring them to our parks community centers. If you can do that before the month of April is done, we will again take anything that we get and pass it along. So again, during the month of April, City Hall, during regular business hours, and parks community centers, you can donate those gently used solar eclipse glasses. And with the clouds, they really were gently used. But again, happy to see that others can use them as well. So we'll shift to crime. We always provide an update on our weekly CompStat report. As a reminder, the report usually is published on the city website on the police page either Tuesday or Wednesday of every week. What we're looking at is the report from last week. We should be getting one probably by the end of today. It's pretty stark. It's really a tale of two types of crime. Let's start with the good news. Violent crime is significantly down across all categories. So it's down this year compared to the same time last year by 24.5%, and compared to the 5-year average, it's down 18.9%. That's significant. Digging in a little bit deeper, specifically on gun-related crime, something that's of great concern to us. Shots fired are down year over year 42%. Shootings with injuries are down 58%. Shooting victims killed or injured are down 71%. And it's worth noting that we have had no gun-related homicides so far in 2024. This is something we are certainly pleased about, but it's not cause for celebration. We still know that there are far too many guns out on the streets. We still have far too many individuals that are not solving their conflicts peacefully. But again, given where we were at this time last year and where we've been over the past 5 years, it is a significant improvement. On the flip side, you look at the bottom of the chart on property crime, and it's a very different story. The numbers are not good. 17.9%, 29.9% year over year property crime is up, and compared to the 5-year average, 40.1%. Why do you ask? Well, the most significant contributor, unfortunately, is still stolen vehicles. That is an area where we've been focused for quite a while now. SPD has done partnerships with local auto sales companies. They've done donations of the clubs for the cars, getting the technology fixed. We are working very hard, and of course, to arrest and hold those responsible for these thefts accountable, but it is still a significant problem. You know, we've talked with other communities that have faced these challenges, specifically Rochester and Buffalo, and you know, we did see eventually those numbers start to go down, but clearly we're not there yet. They arose here after Buffalo and Rochester, and we suspect it will take a little while longer for them to go down. But again, we're working very hard on it. In the meantime, it is having a significant impact on our property crime numbers, as is larcenies, another area where we're working really hard on. So again, we don't rest on our laurels either way. SPD is doing a great job out there every day addressing the crimes that are happening, trying to prevent crimes from happening, and we're going to continue to do that along with all of our other community partners. Next up, I'm going to invite our Deputy Mayor up. As I mentioned, she has some good news to share on federal funding for public safety, and is also going to talk about an important federal need around bridging the digital divide. Deputy Mayor Owens.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it is absolutely my pleasure to be able to share some good news about two items that we receive significant federal grants for programs. Want to absolutely thank Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. He is a staunch ally and champion for the Syracuse and upstate community, and other members of our federal delegation, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand and Congressman Brandon Williams as well. Happy to report we learned in March that we would receive congressionally directed spending. The first one is $1 million for cops cameras. So these are all very familiar to us. They aid in our neighborhood public safety efforts through their amazing tool for investigations as well as emergency purposes. That $1 million will be separated in for two purposes. One is $500,000 will be for repair and maintenance and update of current systems within our cameras. Many of them are almost exceed 20 years of age, and so it's time to upgrade many of them. And then the other half of that $1 million will be used for installation of between 15 and 20 additional cameras within our community. Where they will be located will be determined through the police department's process of evaluating where we have gaps in camera tool utilization. So we'll be working with the police department to identify where those 15 to 20 will go. But $1 million for cops cameras is amazing contribution from our congressional delegation. The other very exciting thing is $400,000 is going to be awarded to our Syracuse Police Athletics and Activities League. And it's specifically going to be allocated for an expansion of the program. Currently, and we all know Jimmy Oliver has been doing an outstanding job with PAL. But the program provides services up to 13. We don't want to stop at a critical age like 13 with benefits of PAL. So this funding will allow us to expand the program for young people of the ages of 14 to 18, so he can continue. We have 13-year-olds literally aging out of PAL now, so this money comes at the perfect time that we can continue the great work that Jimmy is doing with young people in our community. The last thing I'm going to share is the Affordable Connectivity Program. Here's an area where we need immense help from our federal government. High-speed broadband, as you know, it plays a critical role. Not only, it's not just an entertainment vehicle, but it is a vehicle that we all need to function to apply for jobs. Just yesterday, a young man came to City Hall, recognized him, he said, "Hey, Deputy Mayor, can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure," and he said, "Yeah, there's a job available. I'm not good on the computer. I know where I can go to get to a computer, but I'm not comfortable." We went in my office, I pulled up my computer, we went to the site. I said, "Here's where you're going. This is how you have to apply." That is how he had to apply for the job. And so broadband is critical. We have leveraged our American Rescue Plan Act funds and the Federal Affordable Connectivity Program, we call ACP, to provide high-speed internet at no cost. And nearly 700 households have been enrolled in this program. And so the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, recently confirmed that funding for the ACP is going to end in April. This is major, unless more money is reappropriated for the funding and for the program. And so the federal government stopped accepting ACP enrollees in early February. The mayor, Council President Hudson, and the city auditor together wrote a letter to the FCC and to our federal congressional delegation asking for urgent intervention on behalf of the city of Syracuse. Either renew the initiative or find another initiative that will help us to provide this no-cost broadband internet and connectivity service to the people of Syracuse. So we urge you all as well to talk to our federal delegates and their offices. This is an incredibly important program that is sunsetting unless there's some action done. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Deputy Mayor. So I just want to reinforce a few things that the Deputy Mayor said and focus in on the numbers. Again, nearly a quarter of our city population lacks access to high-speed internet in their home. For those that might think that we're focused on this because we have our new SurgeLink program, many people in the city, including many that are using other internet providers, benefit from this program. 42% of the people, of city residents, benefit from this program. So this impacts a large swath of our population and will have a significant negative impact to folks here in the city and across the country if it's not reauthorized. So cannot stress enough how important it is. I just want to go back and again thank our federal delegation for their support on the funding for both the COPS cameras and PAL. So you would think that Senate Majority Leader might be too busy to focus on every community's funding, and maybe he is, but the fact is a few weeks ago I got a call from Senator Schumer himself sharing the news with me that we were receiving this funding. So special shout out to Senator Schumer for keeping a close eye on us here in Syracuse and making sure that we get what we need. It is greatly appreciated. All right, last but not least, we'll talk about the budget. So I'll provide some high-level updates, and then again, happy to answer questions on the budget and anything else. So as a reminder, this is our fiscal year 25 budget. The city runs on a fiscal year that starts on July 1. So we are coming to the end of our fiscal year 24 budget and entering our fiscal year, technically it's 24-25, we refer to as our fiscal year 25 budget. So we delivered it to the council yesterday as required by the charter. Overall, major investments in housing, public safety, infrastructure, jobs, schools, and parks. Total budget number is $341 million. That's specific to the city. That does not include the school district budget, although there is funding in this budget for the school district, additional funding. But again, focused on stronger neighborhoods, better city services, and pathways to opportunity for our young people and families. So some highlights. Major funding for our Syracuse Housing Trust Fund. In partnership with the Common Council, we established the Housing Trust Fund earlier this year. We are in the process of appointing board members and standing it up. We are grateful for the $5 million investment that Governor Hochul and the state legislature is making in the trust fund. We want to make sure that the city has skin in the game. So we are investing $2 million of city funding into the trust fund. And again, the idea there is to invest in the future. We cannot cut our way to prosperity. We have to grow. We have to invest in our neighborhoods. And this is a significant investment in our neighborhoods and in our people. Another significant investment in our people, our Summer Youth Employment Program. That is a program that was a priority coming in at the beginning of this administration. We have grown it for the most part every year. We benefited from significant outside funding, including using federal ARPA dollars, but ultimately we know that those dollars are limited, and so we are making an investment of city funds to continue that program and put about 800 young people to work over the summer in summer jobs. That is something that, again, we're committed to and that has been very successful, and we look forward to continuing. Also related to young people, I mentioned city schools. So as we saw property values grow, that generates additional property tax revenue along with the additional property tax rate that I'll touch on momentarily here. But with that additional revenue, we are setting aside an additional $500,000 for the school district. They're still waiting on the state to know exactly how much they're getting this year, and the state's been very good to the district in recent years. But we want to make sure, again, we're doing our share and sharing some of the increase in property tax revenue with the district. A few other highlights: public safety, again, priority number one. We will have funding in the budget for new police academy classes. As I think most know, we have run police classes pretty much continually to try to catch up to the total number of funded positions. So this budget puts us in a position to continue to do that. We're also continuing to fund our cadet classes, which is still a relatively new program where we're helping young people bridge the gap from high school to the time when they can actually enter into the police academy. We're very excited about that program. We also have funding in the budget to bring in a new fire academy class. So we want to make sure that we've been able to keep our fire department much closer to their funded staffing level. We want to keep it that way. We don't want to lose. We don't want to lose step. So we're going to do another academy class for the fire department. We're continuing our investment in our sanitation process. We had the successful conversion of our sanitation carts, our trash carts. We're now ready to move to recycling. We're in conversations with the Common Council, making sure that we're on the same page with what we ultimately propose. But in the coming weeks and as we get into the new budget year, we will be implementing new covered recycling carts to go along with our new trash carts. And again, in doing so, make a significant improvement to the health and safety of our workers, and also a significant improvement on the aesthetics of our city and reducing the litter that gets blown around on those windy nights. Finally, infrastructure, roads, sidewalks. So our goal is to pave 23 miles of roads in the city. As a reminder, back in 2017, the year before this administration, the city paved about 4 miles. We have since then averaged anywhere between 15 to 25, around the 20-mile range, and this year we're shooting for 23 miles. A lot of that is weather dependent, of course, but we're gonna do our best. in sidewalks. Since we've implemented our new municipal sidewalk program, we have steadily increased the amount of sidewalks, new sidewalks and sidewalk repairs that we're doing. And our goal is to do 14 miles of new sidewalks this year. And one note on parks, a lot of good parks investments, but we specifically want to acknowledge an investment that we're making in the Southwest Community Center. So Deputy Mayor knows this better than most because she used to be the director of the center. For many years, the Parks Department was co-located in the Southwest Community Center, did a lot of programming over there. That went away, and we're bringing it back. The Southwest Community Center is a critical anchor on the Southwest side, again, focusing on young people, giving them things to do and safe places to be, whether it's a police athletic league, whether it's through our schools or our community centers. That's something that we're committed to. And again, we're bringing programming, parks programming back into Southwest Community Center to make sure that that center continues to be a thriving, vibrant, and safe part of our community for our young people. So just a few other highlights to share on the budget. So the good news, revenues are increasing. When you look at our top revenue sources, our top revenue source is sales tax, and sales tax has grown steadily, and we expect it to grow again this year. Maybe not at the same rate that it did last year, but we are expecting growth, and we've seen growth. So that's very beneficial. Our third highest share of revenue comes from property taxes. And we have seen the overall assessed value of properties in the city of Syracuse go up. And so we are seeing that reflected in our property tax numbers. We've also seen significant revenue in the form of how we manage our investments. That's something that we began doing just within the past few years. We've been able to generate significant new revenue through our improved investment management practices. The one significant revenue source that has not changed for 15 years now, of course, is state funding, state aid. And that is something that has a significant impact on us. I mentioned that the state has been very good to the school district, and we're very grateful for that. But during that same period of time when the school district's funding was increased significantly, we remained flat with AIM as the costs of everything, including operating state government, have gone up. So AIM is our second highest source of revenue. It's only a matter of time before it's probably surpassed by property tax revenue, but as long as that stays flat, we are going to continue to have problems balancing our budget and continue to struggle with a structural deficit. Again, we all know from our own household budgets, nothing is getting cheaper. Material costs are going up, and the cost of people is going up. We've made no bones about the fact that we want to be an employer of choice. We lose far too many employees to other employers, whether it be different levels of government or the private sector, because we haven't been competitive in the marketplace. We've made significant investments to be more competitive, again, we're unapologetic. It's an imperative that we do that. But again, those investments have an impact on our overall expenses, and we need to be able to keep up with them. So how do we do that? Well, we have no control over sales tax. Again, we're projecting growth in sales tax, and that's a good thing, but ultimately we really don't control that. We talked about state aid, and that hasn't changed, and despite our best efforts, we don't expect it to. So that leaves us with property taxes. Again, I've said this every time. This is the third time now in my administration that we've increased property taxes. We don't take this lightly. We understand that many of our taxpayers are already burdened with significant household costs, and again, so we don't take this lightly. But we also know that those same taxpayers, those same residents, deserve good city services. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that we can pay for them. So what we're proposing, we think, is a reasonable 2% property tax rate increase. For the average home value of $100,000, that translates to about a $55 increase in property taxes for the year. Again, not insignificant, not taken lightly, but necessary to address to ensure that we're delivering the city services that our residents expect and deserve, and to continue to push back against the structural deficit which has plagued the city for far too long. Also, modest increases to our sewer and water rates. So our sewer rate It'll average out to about $15 per year for a single family, and a 2% water rate increase, which will impact the average ratepayer about $5 per year. So you add those up, what does this budget mean for the average city homeowner? About $75 in additional payment for the year for city services. Again, not insignificant, but for the services that we provide, we think reasonable and necessary in order to maintain a sustainable city government. Last points I want to make on budget. Despite the property tax rate increase, we still do have to make a significant draw on our fund balance. The good news is we can afford to do that because of good fiscal stewardship and management over the past 6 years. So we are proposing to draw $24.75 million from our fund balance, which currently exceeds $115 million. So we can afford to do that now. You can do the math. We can't afford to do that year in and year out for much longer. Again, you do the math, you're looking at about a 4-year window between, if you're at a $25 to $30 million structural deficit. Again, we've built that fund balance up significantly. It was at about $50 million when the administration began, and again, we now sit, we expect by the end of the fiscal year, around 115. So good news is it's there, but the bad news is it won't be there for much longer if we continue at this pace. So given what our needs are this year and our intentional strategy to make strategic investments like the Housing Trust Fund to grow our way out of the challenges that we face, we think it's a responsible amount. In addition to that $24.75 million coming from the fund balance, we're also using the remainder of our ARPA funds, $5 million, again, to help balance the budget. So wanted to make sure that we noted that. We are asking taxpayers to bear a greater burden, but we're also trying to make sure that the city's doing their part as well. That meant, in large part, on the expense side, while overall expenses did go up about 10%, for departments that was basically maintaining the status quo. There isn't a whole lot new or extra that we're doing. When we're adding positions, the goal is to eliminate a position first. So again, this isn't anything extra or extravagant. This is the cost of doing business in city government. And again, we're doing our best to be good fiscal stewards of taxpayer dollars. So moving forward, again, the budget is in the hands of the council. I want to thank the council for their partnership. We met with councilors throughout the process, consulted with them, and our goal is always to not surprise the council with anything that's in the budget. We understand that they have a job to do, they have to do their due diligence, and they have the right to make adjustments to the budget, and so we'll continue to work with them, but again, they've been a good partner throughout this process. They are holding budget hearings now, so the first ones are today, and those hearings will go through April 25th, right up in the council chambers. Those are open public meetings that anyone can attend. You can go on the Common Council's webpage on SEER.gov to find out when those budget hearings are happening. Those are public meetings, they're not public hearings, but there is one public hearing where anyone can come and give their opinion on the budget. That is on May 1st. So the council will hold a public hearing on May 1st where, again, anyone can come, share your thoughts, your advice, your constructive criticism. That's the time to do it on May 1st. Again, I want to thank the council. I want to thank their staff. I want to thank the city clerk, who's integral to the process, helping us to get all of these meetings scheduled. I want to thank our department heads. Again, if we had additional resources, they would have good ways to spend those resources. But they are doing the best they can with the resources that we provided them. And again, our goal is to put them in a position where they can continue to deliver critical city services and make improvements wherever possible. Finally, I want to give a special shout out to the budget office. Certainly our budget director, Tim Rudd, but maybe even more importantly, his team. The folks in the budget office, you don't see them, you don't hear from them. I guess you see them a little bit at the budget hearings, but they are working. I focus a lot on the budget over the course of a couple months during the year. They are working throughout the year not only on helping develop the budget, but then as we're implementing throughout the fiscal year, they're making city government work. And you know, once we get the budget done, then they're doing all the extra things that need to be done, including spending much of the weekend here printing the budgets for the council and others. So again, special shout out to our budget team. They are awesome. With that, I will open it up for questions.
What was the toughest challenge for you in this budget, looking at the structural deficit of the things you wanted in there that you couldn't get in there? Was it how much of the fund balance to use? Was it the tax increase?
Yeah, for me, it's always the tax increase. It's always what impacts the bottom lines of our residents and our taxpayers. I mean, ultimately, everything that we do, it's all taxpayer dollars. And while the fund balance draw may not, people may not feel that directly, that is also significant. But again, for me, knowing, seeing day in and day out the challenges and the struggles that our city residents face, the prospects of increasing their taxes is something that I loathe. But the only thing that I could see worse than that is not being able to provide the critical services that we do to them every day. And so, these are the difficult but necessary decisions that need to be made, not only to make sure that we can operate city government today, but that we can operate city government for many years to come.
Mayor Walsh, so you said about $75 as the increased total amount per household in this proposed budget?
Right, yeah, so that's 55 average for the property tax, 15 for water and, 15 for sewer and 5 for water. And that's just based on averages.
And the road and sidewalk programs continuing, is there any specific area of the city that should be on the lookout for that in their, in their neighborhood or around them?
Yeah, I think we've published the city road recon list, I think, right, team? So that is public information. We can make sure we get that to you, Mary, so you can get it to your viewers. Like everything else, we're data driven. It's not what roads the mayor drives on the way to work or what roads people complain about most. We certainly take that feedback, but ultimately, starting with this administration, we work with the regional planning, the Syracuse Metropolitan Transportation Council to do an annual road rating. So literally every road is examined and is given a rating. And so every year we look at those ratings, we make determinations of where it's critically needed, and it's not just based on there's a number of things that go into ultimately what we prioritize. There's the actual condition of the road, but then we factor in equity in terms of geographic and economic distribution, use, making sure that the roads and the sidewalks, for that matter, that are used most are prioritized. So again, we make that information public. I believe road recon has been made public. I'm not sure about sidewalks, but that's information we can make sure everybody has. But it spans across the city. There is not a quadrant of our city that is not seeing an investment in roads or sidewalks.
Mayor, the sidewalks, is this new sidewalks, rehabilitation, curb cuts? What's the emphasis on this?
Both. So we did make a commitment when we created our municipal sidewalk program that we would build new sidewalks where they don't exist. The majority of it is repairing old failing sidewalks. So it is both, but the majority is on repairs.
With these changes, huge infrastructure changes coming, as a mayor of the city, what role do these sidewalks play? I mean, why is that an important part of your administration to make sure that this is a walkable city?
Yeah, so I shared earlier that about a quarter of our population doesn't have access to high-speed internet in their home. About a quarter of our population, the same percentage of people, don't have access to a private vehicle. So those individuals are using public transportation. They may be riding a bike, they may be using our micro-mobility program and VO on the scooters, or they may be walking. We have many people that are walking in the city for any variety of reasons, to get to work, to get to school, or just for recreational purposes. We need to make sure that we are investing in the infrastructure that those people rely on every day for their lives.
The investment in the Housing Trust Fund, how long does it take for that to turn around, where you're actually seeing more housing, therefore more tax and property tax and everything? And how long before you see a return on?
Yeah, it's a good question, Ellen. So we completed our housing study last year. We immediately jumped into our housing strategy. which we are very close to finalizing. Within that housing strategy, we are going to be identifying specific areas that are going to be prioritized for investment. And with that, we're going to have projections as to how and when we anticipate those investments impacting the neighborhood specifically and more broadly the city. It does take time. So in some neighborhoods, you're going to see investments that are going to make an immediate aesthetic difference. You're going to see new porches, new roofs, things like that. The important thing to keep in mind with these public investments, the primary benefit to making public investments in private property is to catalyze private investment. So put yourself in the position when you're if you own a house and in your neighborhood you look around and you're seeing your neighbors making improvements to their house, you kind of feel like either some pressure that maybe you should try to keep up with your neighbors, but also it gives you confidence that if others are investing in their neighborhood, well, then it's probably a good investment for you. So this $2 million is a drop in the bucket, but what it can catalyze in terms of private investment is significant and can have a pretty quick turnaround and impact. But as we release the strategy, we'll be able to better manage people's expectations in terms of timing. But time is of the essence. Our neighborhoods, much of our housing stock is significantly deteriorated, has not seen significant investment in many years, and so it's needed under any circumstance. But as we're trying to position the city to compete for new employees at Micron and other people that are going to be coming to this community for economic opportunity, it's imperative that our neighborhoods are seen as competitive and viable and attractive. And so again, it's not that we haven't been making investments. You can drive to different parts of town right now, see new houses that are being built, new apartment projects underway, but as I've said from the beginning, we need to accelerate this investment and scale these investments, and this investment in the Housing Trust Fund is our attempt to do that.
Can you expand a bit more on the covered recycling carts that will be coming? That's another kind of aesthetic and quality of life,
Yeah.
but also safety for the workers that we heard with the trash cart rollout. Just expand a little bit more about what
Sure.
people can expect.
Yeah, so we are very pleased with the rollout of our covered trash carts. It has not been without its challenges. Everything from resident compliance to worker compliance, making sure everyone's doing it the way it's intended to do. But when they do, the results are undeniable. Our workers' comp rates are down, and our neighborhoods are cleaner. The problem is now when I drive around our neighborhoods, all I see is recycling materials because that's now what is flying out of our recycling bins. So it was always expected that we would do recycling after, but it was a significant undertaking to do the sanitation carts. It was probably the biggest change to city operations that we've seen in decades. But again, it's working, and so we expect the same with recycling. Things that we need to work out, and learning from the previous effort with the Common Council and with the community, making sure that we're listening to the concerns. We have to look at things like cart size. What's the appropriate size? Is it a one-size-fits-all? Are there multiple sizes? There's pros and cons to all these things. There's frequency of service. Many communities, the standard practice is a bi-weekly recycling service. That's something that we're looking at. But again, we're consulting with the council, we're consulting with the community. We want to make sure that we get those things right before we move it forward. But we are moving it forward. The funding is in place, and again, my goal is to be fully implemented by the end of this year. And again, I expect some growing pains along the way. But again, looking at the experience with trash between worker health and safety and overall city cleanliness, it's a big win.
Aside from, you're raising property taxes and understanding why you need to do so, we're not, accustomed to hearing much in the way of increases in property taxes under your administration. But given the market out there too, is it easier to make a decision like that as well, not just because of fund balance, but to know that property values have increased so much to kind of offset things for people?
Well, I mean, ultimately, we're looking at there are a couple priorities. First and foremost, as it relates to assessments and property taxes, we want to be equitable. We want to be fair. It is not appropriate to look at it through a lens of simply revenue generation. Again, it's about making sure that people's properties the assessments on their properties accurately reflect their real market value. In a market like this that's volatile and that's been increasing significantly, it's hard to do. There are many properties in the city, the majority of the properties that are do not have accurate assessments or at least have not been looked at recently enough. And that's why we talk about the need for a potential overall city-wide reevaluation. But again, making sure that people have confidence that our assessment process is fair and equitable, that's priority number one. When you look at the increase in property values, it does have a positive benefit on property tax revenue. And so therefore, when you look at a property tax rate increase, that can, that has a more significant impact when property values are going up. So, from a city revenue standpoint, increasing property values is a good thing. From a family wealth generation standpoint, property values going up is generally a good thing. But there is another edge of that sword, and it is the impact that it has on property taxes. And again, we don't take that impact lightly.
Generally, an area that has homes that are kept up might be assessed higher just because of that. Do you think that could be a detractor sometimes in getting people to make necessary improvements on their homes, to not only beautify their home, but maybe their neighbors to get them going and have that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's something that people take into consideration. The city isn't any different than any other taxing jurisdiction, so it's the same considerations that anybody else has to make anywhere else. But again, though, that you have to factor in how that investment impacts the overall value of the property. If you're in a position to resell it. I think it's also worth noting, a lot of the big real estate development projects get the headlines as it relates to pilot or payment in lieu of tax agreements, tax breaks. We have tax breaks for homeowners. Not everyone knows that. So before you make any improvement in your property, reach out to the assessment office. Again, we want to incentivize people to make improvements. We don't want them to feel like they're being penalized. And virtually every homeowner will have, depending on the level of their investment, will have a property tax exemption that they can utilize to at least ease any increase in taxes or in assessment that comes with those improvements.
And the program that you're yet to detail more in regards to $2 million, is that for people fixing up their properties, basically?
Yeah, so we've yet to fully program how the funds will be spent within the Housing Trust Fund, but we do know generally where our priorities are going to be. We are looking at the neighborhoods historically that have not seen a lot of investment, and it may be counterintuitive, but those are what we call kind of transitional or bridge neighborhoods. If you think about it, a lot of the public funding and programs that are in place at the federal, the state, and even the local level are focused on the lowest income neighborhoods and areas for good reason. When you look at the investments that are happening, the private investments that are happening, those are typically happening in our stronger market neighborhoods, again, for good reason, because they know they're going to get a return on that investment. It's those in-between neighborhoods that historically have not seen the same level of investment, and that's really where we're going to focus a lot of this funding. We do that because it gives, as we have a housing crunch, it creates more what would be perceived as viable, attractive neighborhoods, whether it's for people that maybe are renting in a lower income neighborhood that want to buy a home and invest in it, but also as we're looking again to attract new people to our community. Look, I can tell you, if you're trying to find a house in our strongest market neighborhoods, of Sedgwick, Meadowbrook, Strathmore, it's really hard to find a house right now. If you think about if we can make strategic investments in the neighborhoods on the edges of those strong market neighborhoods and make them more appealing for folks that might otherwise be looking in the neighborhoods that I just mentioned, that can have a significant positive impact on those neighborhoods, but then again, ultimately to the city's bottom line.
Thanks.
So the structural deficit is 30 million?
Well, it's that's the deficit this year. Structural deficit is a bit of a moving target. That's something we challenge ourselves on every year, looking at maybe outliers, unique expenditures or revenues that aren't going to continue. So it's hard to say exactly what the number is, but this year it's about 30 million. Last year it was around the same, so it's pretty close. But again, our goal is We want to continue to generate new revenue opportunities rather than look for ways to cut. Again, we are not doing anything extravagant. We are delivering city services, and we want to do that well. Again, that's why we are continuing to look at new revenue sources. That's why we're proposing a new room occupancy tax for the city, so we can generate new revenue to provide the services that everyone, including visitors, expect and deserve when they're here in the community.
So what's the new property or the room occupancy tax? I thought the county did that.
So the county has a room occupancy tax. We, as a taxing jurisdiction, have the ability to implement our own room occupancy tax. So last year, as an example, the village of Skaneateles and the town of DeWitt both had their own room occupancy taxes adopted by the state legislature. So we are asking the state legislature to adopt a city room occupancy tax. And again, that's to make sure that as we're encouraging visitors to come here, we can make sure we're funding critical things like public safety, like infrastructure that are necessary for these. So that's just one example. I mentioned the investment management strategy that we've implemented in recent years that's had significant positive impacts on us. That's why I mentioned that the property tax increase. We have limited opportunities to increase revenues. We have a revenue working group that includes members of the administration and the council to identify opportunities to generate new revenue. Again, we want to grow our way out of the challenges that we're having, but we're not out yet. But again, big picture, our fund balance is around 115 million. We're delivering city services well, and again, our goal is to make sure we can continue to do that sustainably.
And this is the third budget you said, just to clarify, that you've delivered to council that proposes
Correct.
a tax, the property tax increase.
Correct.
And what percentage are you thinking for the room occupancy tax? And when will that go into effect?
3%, and it would depend on the action of the state legislature. So,
And it's before then now, after the budget?
correct, after the budget. Yeah. Okay, all right, thanks everybody, appreciate the time.